Hi readers, welcome back to Reads with Rune B with me, Rune B. And today we will be continuing on with Gumshoes, the case of Madison's father. We are on chapter 14, Amends. The next morning, Stuart hopped down the stairs into the kitchen. He saw his parents locked in heated conversation. "You should be nicer to him," his mother said. "He's just a boy." "And you shouldn't cuddle him," his father said. "If I told you the stuff he's done, your head would explode. He's not a criminal. He's just trying to do some good in the world, like you." Stuart's father looked over and saw Stuart enter the kitchen. His demeanor changed. Stuart's mother stuffed her anger deep into the recesses of her face, and slapped on a smile, and shuffled to the sink to clean the dishes. "Mornin', sport. Your mother and I were just talking," she interrupted. 2 pieces of toast popped out of the toaster. She smiled. "Sit down. I made breakfast." Stuart's eyes bounced back and forth between them. They were trying to look like the perfect couple in front of him, and his appetite vanished. "No thanks. I'm not hungry." Stuart grabbed his book bag from the kitchen counter and ran out the back door. Josiah watched him go and shook his head. "This is your fault." Julie looked back at him with scorn and venom in her eyes. "I hope you burn your mouth on breakfast." Stuart's stomach grumbled as he walked through the school hallway with Timothy. "I can't believe I didn't eat breakfast. I'm so hungry." "Yes, the acids are eroding the lining of your stomach as we speak," said Timothy. "You really should head to the cafeteria and remedy your condition." "I might as well eat cardboard," said Stuart. "Both are quite unpleasant scenarios, but the later is a tad less so than starving to death." Stuart grabbed his stomach in pain. "I can't go on like this. Fine, I'll eat the crummy cafeteria breakfast." Stuart entered the cafeteria and saw Madison standing with Brad. She brushed a stray hair out of her face and laughed at one of his inappropriate jokes. "Let's go," said Stuart. "I can't look at her, Tim." "Well, in all fairness, your constant devotion to her made me feel slightly inadequate as your friend," said Timothy. Stuart patted Timothy on the back. "I didn't know you had feelings, Tim." "Me either." Madison glanced at Stuart from the corner of her eye, and her jovial attitude dissolved into a rage-filled scowl. "This is uncomfortable," said Stuart. Madison whispered something into Brad's ear. Immediately, Brad stood and escorted Madison towards the exit. As he passed, Brad slammed his shoulder against Stuart's. Stuart spun 180 degrees and fell to the ground. Stuart shouted at Madison, "You know we did our best to help you. You're just angry, and you're taking it out on us." Madison stomped back towards Stuart. "No, I'm taking it out on both of you. After all, Timothy's not to blame. You are. He's just your lackey." "Me?" said Timothy, flustered by the accusation. He just analyzes the data you give him," Madison said. Timothy popped in between them. "I do a right bit more than that, if you don't mind." Stuart looked through Timothy as if he were a glass wall. "What do you want from me, Madison? I'll do anything." "Just leave me alone!" Madison turned and walked out of the cafeteria. After she left, Chet strutted up to Timothy and Stuart. He cracked his knuckles and smiles. Looks like you ain't got protectors no more. Nerds." Stuart tried to run, but Chet's strength was matched by his quickness. Before Stuart took a single stride away, Chet grabbed him by his underwear and pulled the waistband over Stuart's head, lodging it uncomfortably in the crack of his butt. "Atomic wedgie!" The cafeteria cackled in approval. Stuart collapsed on the ground, and Chet turned his attention to Timothy. Timothy backed away slowly, so as not to aggravate the brooding beast. "Now, I think we can be civil about this. After all, I've not wronged you in any way." Chet grabbed him by the shoulders. "That's not how this works, geek. You upset the balance of power. Now you'll pay." Chet kneed Timothy straight in the legs. Timothy buckled under the intense pain. "Remember that," Chet said as he high-fived a couple of his bully amigos. Chet and his posse walked out of the cafeteria. Stuart rolled over towards Timothy. "We have to get back on Madison's good side. I can't live through this again." Not again. I wholeheartedly agree, but first I must writhe in pain for the next several hours. I'm right there with you, buddy. After school, then. After school, Stuart and Timothy walked into Mr. Albert's after school. Lulu Bell, as always, sat behind her desk. She fielded a madrid of questions from countless concerned clients with the ease and grace of a ballet dancer. Sorry about that, folks. That was my dinner alarm, but we shall continue our read. Fielded a madrid of questions from countless concerned clients with ease and the grace of a ballet dancer. The way the phones practically flew off their handles, Stuart would have thought Madison's father was hard at work in his office. Alberts and Mitchells, please hold. Alberts and Mitchell, please hold. Alberts and Mitchell, please hold. Alberts and Mitchells, thank you for holding. How may I help you? Timothy and Stuart walked up to the reception desk and waited for Lulu Bell to acknowledge their presence. Finally, she hung up the phone and smiled at them. What can I do for you, boys? Do you remember me? Said Stuart. I was here with Madison a couple of days ago. Of course, Lulu Bell said. Why, you're her little bodyguard. Technically, he's more like a sentry, said Timothy. Stuart shook his head. Well, it seems like I left something very valuable inside the office, and I need to get it back. Lulu Bell leaned towards them. Normally, I'd say it's a lost cause because our cleaning people are so darn top-notch. But since the police forbade us from lifting a finger to disturb any evidence, those sweet little old ladies haven't been allowed in for days. I'll go for it. I say go for it. Timothy, confused, could not help but ask a follow-up question. Excuse me, but if they're not allowed to disturb the crime scene, then why are you letting us in the office to do just that? Lulu Bell looked at him, confused and baffled for a moment. I don't understand the question. Now, if you excuse me, she picked up the phone as Stuart and Timothy made their way to the office. The office door closed, and they began to snoop around. We're looking for any proof that someone had it out for Madison's dad, Stuart said. I'm not quite sure I understand, said Timothy. Since we have all the raw files, why not just look through them? We did that before and we got squat. There has to be something else. Stuart made his way over to Mr. Albert's desk. After Stuart looked through the pencil cup and the inbox, he picked up a picture of Madison and her father fishing. She must have forgotten this last time, he thought to himself. For the first time, Stuart saw how happy Madison had been with her father, and the radiance she exuded before he was taken away from her. Stuart wished that just once his father would elicit that sort of joy for him. As he cradled the picture in his hands, he felt something pop, as if a piece of paper had been hastily wedged inside. Stuart flipped the latches that held the frame together and carefully removed the back. A folded-up piece of paper was crammed behind the photograph. Stuart unfolded it. The top of the document read, Agreement to dissolve partnership between Sylvester Alberts and Peter Mitchell. Stuart flipped through to the final page of the document and noticed that the only signature was that of Mr. Alberts. Tim, I think I've found the smoking gun. Timothy made his way across the room as the door flung open. A sinewy figure cloaked in shadow stood in the doorway. The figure stepped into the light. It was Madison. What are you two idiots doing here? She said. Stuart smirked at her. I think we found something that might interest you. Stuart, Madison, and Lulu Bell crowded around Mr. Albert's computer, while Timothy attempted to hack the files on the computer. Lulu Bell bit her lip. I don't like this one bit. Mr. Albert's clients are going to be really unhappy if they find out you were snooping through their private records. Madison rubbed Lulu Bell's back. I know you don't like it, Lulu, but if it leads to my father, then it'll all be worth it. I know, Lulu said. You've made it all very clear. Timothy broke through the heavily encrypted firewall with Spike's help. Now we're in. Let's see what we can find. He opened the email as he searched past the thousands of client emails received since his disappearance. Timothy found the last email to which Madison's father had responded. The email was marked urgent. The subject line read, "Earning projections," and the body of the email consisted of an attachment which opened a spreadsheet. Assuming the partnership disbanded, Mr. Mitchell's spreadsheet laid out the earnings of each of the partners over the next 20 years in painstaking detail. "This is amazing," said Timothy. "Apparently, the partnership is worth $2 million annually. However, if they dissolve the partnership, they would be lucky to make $300,000 a year combined." The squeaky wheel of Stuart's brain pieced together the puzzle. No wonder Mr. Mitchell didn't sign the document. It's career suicide. "Where is Mr. Mitchell now?" Madison asked Lulu Bell. Lulu Bell thought for a moment. "I don't know. He keeps his own schedule these days. I could always call you and let you know when I see him." Madison ran to the door. "No time. Come on, guys. We'll check out his house first. Maybe we'll get lucky." "Does that mean we're friends again?" Stuart said. "Quit asking dumb questions and hurry up." Madison disappeared from view. "That wasn't much of an answer, was it, Tim?" Stuart said. Timothy walked out the door with Stuart. "No, Stuart, it certainly wasn't. But on the plus side, she doesn't seem to hate you at the present moment." "True that, buddy." Mr. Mitchell's house was not as palatial as Mr. Albert's, but the location was nevertheless fabulous. The house looked out over East Willow Lake. 2/3 of the house jutted out beyond the rolling hills, supported by metal stilts to prevent it from sliding below the water. To prevent it from sliding into the water below. Madison opened the door to Mr. Mitchell's house, and 3 of them filed inside. Madison stepped down the 3 stairs that led into the main living room and onto shag carpet. "It's lucky I feed his plants while he's away, so I have his house key." Stuart flipped on the lights. The entire house was in disarray, much like Madison's house. It looked like a bullet train had ripped through one side and out the other. Madison noticed an empty wall where a large exotic fish tank had once been. Now all that remained was shattered glass and dead fish strewn across the floor, her shoes squished on the soaked carpet. "He loved this fish tank," Madison said. "My dad said it was the only thing he cared about more than money. Some of these fish cost $300,000. "Are you kidding me?" said Stuart. "My mom's car didn't cost $3,000. As they made their way around the room, they heard a faint moaning coming from underneath an overturned coffee table. "I don't like the sound of that," Timothy said. Timothy and Stuart each grabbed a side and heaved the heavy coffee table away, revealing a badly beaten, barely conscious Mr. Mitchell clinging to life. "Ah!" Madison let out a blood-curdling scream as Timothy and Stuart held on to each other, terrified. And that was chapter 14 of Gumshoes. Stay safe, like, subscribe, and follow, and we'll see you next chapter. Bye for now, readers.